Made with Love by Indigrow.
Hi, everyone. So today we're joined by NoNieqa Ramos. They are an educator and author, an award-winning author. And today we're here to talk about their book, Hair Story. It has been selected for the International Latino Award. And NoNieqa Ramos, before I say anything else, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me on this platform, first of all. We have the same mission to make sure that we as families and communities are supporting each other, so I really appreciate it. I am an author of picture books and YA, middle grade in the works. I'm also an educator, so I did work in the public school system for quite a few years before becoming a full-time writer, but I am still in the schools all the time. And I feel just as passionate about teaching as I do about writing. So that's a little bit about me.
What grades did you teach?
So at this point, I've gone all the way from itty bitty 3-4-year-olds through college just because of my writing platform. Formerly, my last teaching job was in middle school. So that was another tender spot for me, the kids that are in the 6th through 8th grade range. But yeah, it's been great to travel everywhere and to work with all ages. So,
and that has clearly influenced your work because you have worked with picture books, but you've also written young adult books. How do you see the difference between the two age groups and the conversations that spark with your books and these two different age groups?
Yeah, there's definitely a big difference between addressing topics with littles and kids who are in high school age. It's interesting though, because picture books span such a gamut, because I just did a 1-month-long program with newcomers who are high schoolers with picture books. They're pretty powerful. But I think that, of course, with our littles, I always envision the caregiver or the parent, their adult, their bigs with them as they're reading the book. And that's super important. I picture the parent sometimes getting as much nourishment as the child, because the kinds of books that I write were not the kind of books that were available to many of us. Many people of color, many BIPOC people, LGBTQ people are just now seeing themselves in the picture books. So, and books in general. So I always try to picture that nourishment going both ways. And then I guess the other part of that is just to be developmentally appropriate. What if I'm delivering a message that's dealing with topics that can cause some conflict or even a little bit of pain. Racism is painful. I want to make sure that I'm not just bringing up the topic, but I'm also surrounding that topic with love and hope and optimism and empowerment, so that a little can definitely say that I have some tools to deal with this, if this should happen to me, but I also feel very beloved and very protected, because these are our little babies that are going into this world. With the bigs, we know that they're, the teenagers, they're going out on their own at this point. They're starting to make those kinds of decisions. So I can give them more, I can kind of address more widely. And of course, again, developmentally appropriate, like what is it that they need? What is it that's going to make them feel validated? Those are different things for different ages. But the topics, as you've seen in my books, the topics are the same. I do address the actual world we're living in. So, yeah.
So I find that interesting, because like you said, we have the same mission and same purpose. And a lot of the times the conversations that we have are, and we specifically work with the littles, not so much with the middle schoolers, but our belief is that the work that we're doing with the littles impacts their life in middle school. And that's why we believe in the foundation year period. But some of the times that we again, talking about the different types of topics that are out there. And there is a lot of pushback at some level about what is age appropriate and how, and I think that sometimes the topics themselves are deemed inappropriate as compared to how you deal with the topic. And I feel there's a distinction to be made there. So could you kind of speak a little bit more about that?
Well, I think, first of all, our kids are going into a world where we have such great opportunity to really understand and love each other. And that's the way I see it overall. When children are being presented with topics that deal with, I'm gonna kind of just stay with racism, but clearly that's not the only topic. Or on the positive side, when kids are encountering diversity that they may not have in their home. Maybe you have a cisgender family, and the kid is going to confront other children or other families or other parents in families who are LGBT. All of those things from the spectrum of, as I said, somewhat painful, right? And then the spectrum of just, this is our world. Both of those things. These kids are coming out into the world with that. And when you put a book in their hands about these topics, you're not saying that, how do I put this? You're putting the parent and the caregiver right there in the forefront of these kinds of conversations. When you have these books, you have their family, their caregivers, their teachers, the whole community saying, we want to prepare you, we want to prepare you, and we want to love you. When I send a child out into the world that knows that if, for example, they hear negative things about their skin color or their ethnicity or their cultural background, that those are false, I have empowered them. I haven't hurt them. I haven't taken away from their innocence. Rather, I have given them an inner voice of kindness towards themselves, so that when they confront negative things, they can say, that's a negative thing, but the larger reality is me. I know I am good. I know that my family, my cultural background, my ethnicity, I know they're beautiful. And I'm confronting a particular negative thing, but largely there's good in the world. I think that we have to shift our understanding from thinking that we're putting kids in a position where they're seeing negativity or they're confronting things they're not ready for. The kids are going to be in the world like the rest of us, seeing and hearing and experiencing. What we're doing is helping them process it in a healthy way, as opposed to what happened to many of us growing up, where we experienced no way to understand when someone was saying ugly things about the way we looked. Our body size was a big one in the 90s, right? About our gender, sexual orientation, whatever it is, for if you want to kind of move away from that, just your family's customs, their family's traditions that may be different. There are all sorts of things. And I know that, we have cohorts of people, whole groups of people who are like, when I was little, I just felt like they were correct. When I was hearing these ugly things, I just thought, maybe that's true, or I don't feel as good about myself, or I don't feel proud of, myself or my family, or where my family comes from, or the language they speak. And in this case, I know there's no kid that's going to read a book of mine that's going to feel that way. They're going to go, no, that's false. I feel good. And when I feel good, it connects me with my family. So we have to understand that talking about these topics in community doesn't separate a child from their parents' decisions, thoughts, and feelings. It empowers them to just feel healthy and good, and to know how to better love other people. That's all that happens when we have these kinds of books. As far as what you were saying about the pushback, I do want to say this. Any parent has the right to say, you can't, that book is, we're not ready for that, or that's just not the book we're going to read today. I've had that conversation with my own child when it's kind of funny, but there were some lovely middle grade books, wonderful, but the topics, they just weren't ready for them. They just were like, I'm not ready for hearing dating language. My child was reading above their level, and in 3rd and 4th grade, they were like, I can read that book, but I'm not ready for the topics. So I said, okay, we're going to set this aside. And I'm glad we are talking about this. And I went to speak to the teacher and say, okay, I need suggestions. What's the best way we can collaborate? But that being said, it is not my right to tell another parent that they can't read that same book, nor is it my right to tell a classroom. As a classroom teacher, I definitely had times when a kid would say, well, that's not for me, that book. We respect that always, but we definitely don't say that book is not for the entire class. So that's where I stand on that.
So I think that basically it's important to make that distinction, right? Again, about the individual, about the collective, about each person's individual choices and risk. And I think at some point you talked about having love and respect. And I think that, when we approach things with love and respect, and not just, and it's twofold, right? It's one is love and respect for ourselves. And that's what we need to nurture within as identity, and then love and respect for the people around us. And that's where, where we're connecting on similarities and celebrating differences, and all of that comes into play. And the books like these are what help us create opportunities to explore these conversations. It helps us create opportunities to say, hey, you're put into a hypothetical scenario to say, if this were to happen to you, how would we deal with it? How would we react to it? What can we say? What can we do? And that eventually helps the child in navigating their real life experiences, because they will all have, like you said, some form of an experience, some way that they are made to feel. We have all felt like outsiders at some point of time, right? Whether it's because, like you said, whether it's because of language, or the way we look, or the food that we eat, there will be some way in which we're a minority. We can't always, we can't look exactly the same as everybody else, eat the same as everybody else. We will be different. And what happens when that feeling sets in that, oh, I'm not quite the same? How do we teach children to honor and love and respect themselves in that scenario? And at the same time, how do we teach them to be accepting and inclusive and kind and empathetic towards others?
It's all about what you're saying over and over is kindness and opportunity. This is our opportunity to grow as a community, as a country. I think that this is about the children, particularly in my books. I'm addressing children who are, BIPOC children, and in particular here, Afro-Latinx and Latinx. But, this is about everybody, all of us recognizing how to take care of ourselves and how to take care of each other. There's, if a child is reading my book and they are not, Puerto Rican, they're going to get the same benefits of knowing, wait a minute, if someone is saying things that are negative about the hair I'm born with, the body that I have, I understand through this book, whether or not I'm Puerto Rican or Latina, that's not right. I understand that who I am, the hair on my head, the way my eyebrows are, if I have facial hair, whatever it is, that's just the way that I'm made, and so these are books for everybody. And I think that's another understanding we need to have. They're books for everybody. And the overall message is to have the conversations, to have that, like you said, that opportunity, right? To bring everybody in. Again, always everybody. I want to know what my kids are reading. I want to know what they're thinking. I may agree and disagree with certain points when we discuss it. Not every award-winning book by a BIPOC person is I agree from page 1 to page 352. I think we have to kind of know, but what I want is them to say, hey, this is what was going in the book, and then we'll have a conversation. And these are the kinds of conversations when you have that classroom book and they come home that the kids remember forever. They will never forget when you dug in there. And guess what? You as a parent may also, or caregiver, may also learn a different perspective, or may also think for a minute and say, wait a minute, I have to rethink what I was going to say in this conversation. We might have another conversation, because none of us, 100%, none of us had access to accurate histories, had access to books that were making it, so that we never have another generation of kids who are feeling strange, bad, poorly about their skin color, the ones that are bringing to school, the prayers that they want to say. That can be completely eradicated. That's the thing we don't think about. Like, we have those situations because we didn't address those situations in the past the way they should have been. When we do this now, we're actually making it so that kids won't, they'll say, well, of course I'm going to be kind. Of course, I'm going to try my best to say someone's name correctly or apologize if I don't. Yeah, I'm going to try to say someone's pronouns right. If I mess up, I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm going to try again. Or whatever it is that is going to dignify another human. We have this chance to me, and this evolution of thought. We could be at that place and think, okay, if we're all being kind to each other, and if your particular traditions and backgrounds or skin color or whatever it is not really the issue right now, think about how our minds can be free to imagine so many other wonderful things. So that's kind of like how I would love for parents to address that. We are protecting our children's mental health, actually. It's the opposite of the way it's been framed. When we're saying, no, you're good enough, you're smart, you're okay. And I may not know everything that's going on in that little head of yours, but you've been given enough tools to know that when you're changing, when you're growing, when you're thinking, you'll always know, well, no matter what it is, I know that I'm loved and I'm important, and that I should feel good about taking myself, and I should take time for myself, and I should communicate with my family. And it's going to be okay when I do, because we've already had all these conversations since picture books. We've been talking this whole time. That's the way I kind of see it with the kids and their parents and their caregivers. It's never ever been separate for me. And I think in Hair Story, you can see that the moms are in the book.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to talk about Hair Story because, it's a story about this little girl, Preciosa, and she has curly hair that won't stay straight. And I think that that's something that so many kids across the world completely relate to. And like you said, it doesn't matter whether I'm Puerto Rican or Black or African or American or Asian. It really doesn't matter. We all have hair, stuff that we've kind of dealt with, or we've had friends who've had hair issues. So how this idea of hair on our bodies, hair on our arms, hair. I mean, we have hair in our nose that we don't talk about, right?
Yes, it's true. It is. We're just like, human beings, and we spend so much time grooming it away. And I respect when people want to dress up and all those types of things. But the fact is, if you don't, you should still feel like it's okay. I'm not going to get, yeah. So I'm so appreciative of that movement. I'm appreciative of that movement now because I have a child now who's 15, and they feel comfortable, deciding whether they're going to keep their armpit or not. And that sounds like a little thing, but it actually isn't, because when I was a kid, if you had decided that, it would have been humiliation, insults, so I'm glad that they get to choose,
Absolutely. And I think that it's that there are so many kids growing up who have to make these decisions for themselves, about how society conditions them to look.
Right? Yeah, and society really monetizes that. And we always have to remember, like, the billions of products in the store. Again, I combed my hair today. I'm wearing deodorant. I'm not saying well, we shouldn't groom according to what you will. But my point to you is that we have gotten to the point where we have made a product out of every single inch of our bodies. And I don't know that that's the healthiest thing. And I guess what I want to say about the Hair Story is, I was always, thankfully, gratefully, made to feel good about my hair. But my hair stuck out even in my own families, because right now my hair's got gel in it, but my hair is actually very bushy, very frizzy, and not even sort of like you picture beautiful, let's just kind of give it, look at the Latinas and the examples, like my hair didn't look like theirs either. And I don't, my background and my roots made my hair the way it is. So when it's out, it's just, and so I don't think I was ever comfortable really letting my hair out like that. And even now I'm like, would I, so I want it to be the case that I brought Latinas into the ever-growing body of literature. I'm not, because I thought, okay, there are beginning to be some incredible books about Black hair, and that's so important. And I wanted to just add this to the conversation, because I think, as you were saying, the hair was definitely an issue. Many of my peers, we definitely gelled and crisped it up because we didn't want it looking bushy and frizzy. And And I'm just thinking, okay, so that's great, but what if you don't want to put product in your hair? What if you just want to have it the way it is, the way you were born? What, so there's that. And the other part of the book is, in addition to kind of saying, hey, just love the hair growing out of your head, is the parents being in there, the mommies being in there. They're all going on this hair journey together. I wanted to invite you as a reader to think about, okay, so what was your hair journey? Everybody has a hair story, I think.
Yeah.
Once you get to those, your age, my age, your age, parents' age, caregivers, we're like, no, I can tell you some things about what that was like.
Absolutely. And I think that that's another powerful tool that we have as parents, to be able to share our own experiences with our children, because I think that there is something about that connection that you form, right? That it brings context, it brings perspective to your child in that scenario, and you say, this is what I learned from my experience, and I'm now sharing that with you. So I think there's a lot of power in sparking that conversation as well, and using books like Hair Story to promote and spark those conversations.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. When I wrote Hair Story and I wanted the mamas also doing their hair, I thought, yeah, that's exactly it. I want the mamas, and I say that because the mamas are in this book, but that's the papas, that's the puppies, that's the grandpas, whoever it is that's reading the book, to say, hey, let me tell you what it's like for me, or let me tell you how I do my hair. Or how about this? What makes me feel good is when, I know when I grew up, I was raised by my father, and I'll never forget, he's the most beautiful mustache. Like, everybody has a story, about their hair. And so that's, after you read Hair Story and you dance through the words and you put it down, yeah, do each other's hair, talk about hair, have a hair experience, make a book where you make a story, or look through pictures.
Yeah.
Right. I think some of us could probably show some pretty interesting pictures of ourselves when we were younger with our hairstyles.
No, I think it's a lovely book. It's a lovely way to kind of, like we've talked about, is to kind of, again, this idea of identity, this idea of embracing and celebrating who you are in totality, and creating an opportunity for the parent, the educator, the caregiver, whoever it is, to have that conversation with their child, and to talk about all the different forms of hair that we have on our heads, on our bodies, and kind of empower a whole generation of children to look differently, and feel differently about their hair.
Yeah, and I also put it just reminded me to going back to this book baby here, because I'm working on other books now, and I really the conversations also can go to your particular cultural histories, because both of the girls in the book look in the mirror and see their ancestors. And in the end of the book, speaking about sort of like the history, and there's a lot of, you'll see a big giant mural in Hair Story of different Afro-Latina people who are showing off their hair, poofy, big, small, bald, all sorts of historical figures, and their little hair stories. Do
you think you could show us the last page?
I can try. I'm so terrible at showing things on the screen because I never. Can you see?
Look at that. That's lovely. That's absolutely.
Yeah. Keisha Morris, the illustrator, did a beautiful job, and there are all sorts of wonderful Marley Diaz and Elizabeth Acevedo, and all sorts of wonderful little teeny burbs that are bite-sized for our little kids to enjoy after they finish the book.
That's amazing. And I'm assuming that the book is available on Amazon and all the other places that one can.
It is, but it would delight my writer's soul if you all would buy it from your own local store and ask for it.
Okay.
They can get it in. I do it all the time. Even if it's on the shelf, they can get it in. And then I know Amazon's fast. I know they are. And, or even Barnes & Noble, but it would be, all of us writers are definitely big on your local bookseller.
So it is available in local bookstores. All you need to do is ask for it. There we go. All right. That's good to know. Perfect. Thank you so much, NoNieqa, for your time. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you, and we will have all the details of your book available along with this show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Visit us at indigrowkids.com for more.